It's hard to even begin this, but I feel like I need to share my story. I'm 23 years old, and for as long as I can remember, Em has been like a sister to me. We've known each other since we were 4, and through the years, we've been partners in crime, sharing everything, our deepest secrets, our hopes, our dreams. We even promised to be godmothers to each other's children one day. We were that close. The kind of friendship you think would last forever. When I was 17, I started dating an LA guy I had known from the neighborhood. He was actually the son of one of my father's good friends. So we were familiar with each other from a young age. I'd had a crush on him since I was 15, and Em knew about it. She was the one who encouraged me to talk to him, even pushed me to ask him out. So I did. Everything felt perfect at first. Elle was everything I thought I wanted in a partner. He was charming, funny, and homey. He was my soulmate. But after we had been together for about 4 years, things started changing. Elle became distant, and at first, I thought it was just stress from university. I tried to support him, tried to cheer him up, tried to keep the intimacy between us alive. But no matter how hard I tried, he kept brushing me off. I thought maybe I was overthinking it, that it was just the pressures of life. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. One day, while trying to make a call on his phone, I accidentally saw a message thread between him and Em, and what I saw was enough to stop me in my tracks. There were hundreds of messages exchanged, and some of them were extremely intimate. I couldn't believe my eyes. They had been sending each other nudes. I felt disgusted, betrayed, but I didn't confront him right away. I knew what would happen if I did. He would deny it, try to twist things around. The truth hit me harder when it happened in person. One afternoon, I decided to surprise Elle at his house. When I walked in, what I saw stopped me dead in my tracks. Elle and Em were on the couch, almost naked. It was clear that they had been in the middle of something. They both looked up at me, their faces pale, eyes wide in shock. It felt like my heart dropped into my stomach. The rage, the confusion, the heartbreak. I couldn't handle it. I just turned around and walked out without saying a word. They tried to chase me down, shouting after me, "It's not what it looks like." Oh, really? You two are half naked and kissing each other, and you expect me to believe it's not what it looks like? I didn't have the energy to listen to their excuses. I was with my sister at the time, and I told her to take me home. I cried the entire way there. My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest. When we got home, I broke down completely. My sisters were there for me, and they just let me cry. I told them everything. They didn't judge me. They didn't tell me what to do. They just listened. But they were also the ones who told me to save the screenshots I had of the messages. They said I should message both Elle and Em, telling them that it was over. And so, I did. I also told all our mutual friends about what had happened. It was chaos. The betrayal felt like a knife in my heart, and I couldn't believe the people I had trusted for years kept secrets from me. I couldn't fathom how they had just let it happen and never said a word. It was a mess, and I was left feeling empty. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. All I could do was cry. The betrayal from Em hit me harder than I ever imagined it would. She had been my best friend, someone I confided in, someone I thought I could trust with everything. To know that she had been sneaking behind my back with Elle, someone I loved, it was devastating. The pain from her betrayal cut deeper than anything else. I had no idea what to do. It felt like everything in my life had been a lie. I started to notice things I had ignored before. Elle's red flags. The way he would criticize me about my appearance or my ambitions. The way he mocked my dreams. Even though I was just trying to be supportive, I realized that he was never the person I thought he was. The fact that he had a spreadsheet where he rated all the girls in our friend group, including me, based on their looks made me sick. It was clear now that I had been living in a fantasy, thinking he was someone he wasn't. It was a slow process, but I eventually started to heal. It wasn't easy. I lost a lot of friends during this time. Some of them took M's side, and others just didn't want to get involved. I cut them off. They weren't the kind of people I needed in my life. But I had my 2 sisters, who were my rock. They were the ones who kept me going. I started working out, going out with friends, and doing things that helped me rebuild myself. It wasn't easy, but I got through it for an entire year. I didn't date anyone. I couldn't bring myself to. I needed to heal, to find myself again. And then, just when I thought I had left the past behind me, my mum started pushing me to forgive M. She kept saying that we should fix our friendship, that I should let go of the past and move on. She'd tell me that M's mum had been a great friend to her and that they wished things could go back to how they were before. But how could I? How could I forgive M after everything she had done? How could I forget the pain of being betrayed by the two people I trusted most in the world? The woman who had been my best friend, my partner in crime, and the man I thought would be my soulmate. Both of them had broken my heart. And now my mum wanted me to just forget it all and move on. I couldn't do that. I didn't want to. But my mum kept pushing, saying that I'd become bitter if I didn't forgive her. It hurt, honestly. I felt like I was being asked to disregard my own feelings just to keep the peace with M's mom. My sisters were on my side, but my father was more neutral, telling me that the decision was mine to make. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. Not after everything. But my mum just didn't seem to understand. The pressure to forgive M was mounting. My mum kept repeating how she missed the old days, when things were simple, when our families were close, and we didn't have this rift between us. She kept saying that M's mum had been there for her during tough times, like when she had a miscarriage years ago, and that losing M as a friend would be like losing a part of herself. I get that, I really do. But what about me? What about the pain I felt? The betrayal that cut so deeply into my heart? It was hard enough just processing the betrayal from L. But when I realized that M had been part of it, it was like a second wave of hurt crashing over me. I couldn't understand how someone I had trusted so much could do something like that to me. And to make matters worse, M's apology wasn't even genuine at first. She said she was sorry, but it felt hollow, as if she was apologizing more out of obligation than real remorse. She claimed that she'd only slept with L because she was lonely after breaking up with her boyfriend. But that excuse didn't sit right with me. She had no right to do what she did, and it didn't matter how lonely she was. As if all of that wasn't enough, I started digging deeper into L's past behavior, things I had ignored or dismissed because I didn't want to believe the truth. He had so many red flags that I had overlooked. I had brushed off his criticism of my looks and ambitions as jokes. But now I saw them for what they really were, manipulative comments designed to tear me down. I remembered the time when I told him I wanted to write a book, and he mocked me for it. I brushed it off back then, thinking it was just his dark sense of humor. But now, looking back, it was clear he never believed in me. And then there was the spreadsheet. L had kept a list of all the girls he knew, including me, and rated them based on their looks. He shared this list with his friends, and it made me feel disgusting. I had always thought I was enough for him, but now I realized that I was just another name on a list, rated and objectified. It shook me to my core, as if things weren't already bad enough. I found out that some of our mutual friends had known about the affair and kept it from me. I couldn't believe it. These were people I had considered close friends. They knew what was happening behind my back and didn't say a word. When I found out about this, I cut them off too. I didn't need people like that in my life. I didn't want to be surrounded by people who would hide things like this from me. L tried to reach out to me a few times after everything blew up. He came to my house, trying to apologize, but my sister was having none of it. She told him that if he ever showed his face there again, she would call the cops. I didn't want him anywhere near me either. It felt like everything he said was just to save his own skin. He didn't care about me. He cared about making himself look good. It was a long, painful journey, but eventually I started to heal. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight. I spent a lot of time crying, wallowing in my sadness, but my sisters were always there, and they helped me through it. They never once judged me, never once told me to just move on. They gave me the space I needed to process everything, but they also made sure I didn't stay stuck in that dark place for too long. I spent a lot of time working on myself, going to the gym, focusing on my studies, and even joining some online forums for people who had been through similar experiences. I stayed away from dating for a year. I wasn't ready, and I didn't want to rush into something just to fill the void that L and M had left behind. It was important to me to find myself again before I even thought about being with someone else. But then, my mum started pushing me again. She kept saying that it wasn't healthy to hold on to the anger and pain forever, that I needed to forgive Em if I wanted to move forward. She made it sound like forgiving her was the only way I could have peace, but I wasn't sure if I could do that. I didn't know if I could forgive someone who had done something so hurtful to me, especially after everything that had happened. The pressure from my mum was starting to wear me down, and it felt like I was caught between two conflicting emotions. On one hand, I didn't want to lose her friendship with Em's mom, but on the other, I didn't want to be forced into something I wasn't ready for. I didn't want to be pushed into forgiving Em just for the sake of peace. I started to wonder if there was something more to my mum's insistence on reconciliation. Maybe it wasn't just about maybe it had something to do with her own fears and insecurities. After all, she had been through a lot with Em's mom, especially after her miscarriage, when Em's mom had been there for her. I realized that my mum's relationship with Em's mom was a lifeline for her, and losing that friendship would be a huge emotional blow, but I couldn't let my mum's emotional needs dictate my own healing process. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I had every right to feel angry and hurt. I didn't owe Em forgiveness, especially not after everything she had done, but my mum's pressure was wearing me down. I was torn between my own need for healing and her desire for me to let go of the past. Things came to a head one evening when we all sat down to have a serious conversation about my dad, who had been quietly supportive throughout everything, finally spoke up and said that he was staying out of it, but that the decision was ultimately mine. He understood why I was hurt, but he didn't want to force me into a reconciliation I wasn't ready for. I told my mum how I felt, that I couldn't forgive Em, not yet. I wasn't asking her to stop seeing Em's mum, but I needed her to understand that I couldn't just pretend like nothing had happened. It wasn't just about the betrayal. It was about the hurt I felt and the damage that had been done to me. My mum was upset, and we argued for a while. She kept saying that I needed to let go of the past, that it was just a stupid boy, and that I shouldn't let it ruin my life. I was getting frustrated, and that's when I asked her, what if Em's mum had an affair with Dad, and you walked in on them? Would you forgive her? I expected her to get mad, but her expression was completely different from what I thought it would be. She just stared at me, blankly. There was a long silence. My dad then stepped in and said that it was time for me to know the full story. And then, for the first time, I heard a whole new side to the story, my mum's past with Em's mum, and how her own betrayal had affected their friendship. It wasn't just about Em's actions. It was about a deep history between our families that I hadn't known about before. And what I learned that night changed everything. I had never expected that conversation to go the way it did. I had no idea that my mum's relationship with Em's mum was so complicated, so rooted in a past I didn't fully understand. But when my dad spoke up and said, "She's old enough to know now," I braced myself for what was coming. And that's when I finally learned everything. My mum had known Em's mum for years, long before I was born, but it wasn't just a friendship like I had thought. It was something much deeper. Apparently, Em's mum had a history of cheating. She had cheated on her first husband with multiple men, and my mum had known about it but never confronted her. There had been signs, hints, but my mum had always ignored them. It wasn't until Em's mum got pregnant with her second child that the truth came out. She had tried to pass the baby off as her ex-husband's, but her husband had figured it out with a DNA test. My mum had told me that her friend was remorseful, begging her ex-husband to stay, but he didn't. Instead, he hired a lawyer, paid child support, and left. He didn't want full custody of Em, but he got visitation rights. And that's when things really took a dark turn. Em's mum's life went downhill after the divorce. She had lost everything, including the man who had been a great husband. The guilt and shame of her actions had torn her apart. But it didn't end there. My mum had spent years helping Em's mum get back on her feet. She was there for her during the hardest times, when Em's mum was spiraling into depression after her ex-husband remarried. It was during this time that Em's mum had tried to make a move on my dad. She had been drunk and desperate, and she came on to him. My dad, of course, rejected her immediately and told my mum about it, but my mum had refused to believe it at first. She didn't want to accept it because it was so painful. But eventually, M's mum apologized. My dad never liked her, but he tolerated her because of my mum. What shocked me even more was that this wasn't the first time M's mum had tried to get close to my dad. According to my sisters, she would often try to spend time with him when my mum wasn't around. My dad always kept his distance, but it was clear that M's mum had an unhealthy attachment to him, and my mum had never fully seen it. She had always dismissed it, telling herself that it was just her friend trying to cope with her failed marriage. At that moment, I realized something that hit me like a ton of bricks. My mum's attachment to M's mum wasn't just about their shared history. It was also about filling a void in her life. She had had a miscarriage before I was born, and I'd always known about it, but I never understood just how much it had affected her. After losing that baby, my mum had struggled, and M's mum had been there for her in ways no one else was. It was like M's mum had become a surrogate for the child. My mum had lost, and in a way, that loss was always lingering between them. I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. My mum had been so determined for me to forgive M, but now I understood why. It wasn't just about M. It was about her fear of losing someone who had been there for her during some of the darkest times in her life. I could see it in her eyes. She didn't want to lose M, but at the same time, I knew my mum didn't want to force me into something I wasn't ready for. It wasn't just about M's betrayal. It was about the history between our families and the emotional ties that went much deeper than I had ever realized. But even with all this new information, I still couldn't forgive M. I couldn't forget what she had done. It wasn't just about the affair with L, it was about the years of lying, the secrecy, the betrayal. M had been like a sister to me, and she had broken that bond in the worst way. She had chosen L over me, and in doing so, she had destroyed our friendship. I couldn't just let that go. I thought about everything my mum had said, and I tried to understand her point of view. But the more I processed it, the more I realized that I couldn't just let go of my feelings for the sake of preserving someone else's friendship. I had to put myself first. I had to take care of my own heart. And right now, that meant not forgiving M, at least. Not yet. I wasn't ready to welcome her back into my life. I wasn't ready to act like everything was okay when it wasn't. After that conversation, my mum and I didn't speak for a few days. She was upset with me, but I think she also understood deep down that I wasn't going to back down. She kept trying to convince me that I should forgive M, but I wasn't ready. I couldn't pretend that everything was okay. I couldn't forgive her just to make things easier for everyone else. I had to be true to myself, even if it meant disappointing my mum. A few days later, things took another turn. My mum came to me and said that she wanted to meet with M's mum alone. She wanted to talk about everything that had happened. I didn't know if I was ready for that, but I let her go. I didn't want to get involved in their drama anymore. My mum needed to sort things out on her own, and I needed to focus on myself. What happened during that meeting, however, would change everything. When my mum returned, she told me something I couldn't believe. It was as if the final piece of the puzzle had clicked into place. My mum told me that M's mum had confessed everything to her. She knew about the affair. She knew that M and L had been together behind my back. And yet, she had never said a word to me. Not once. She had even encouraged M to keep it a secret, telling her to conceal it properly so that no one would find out. I felt betrayed all over again. M's mum had known everything this whole time and said nothing. She had known about the affair and allowed her daughter to keep lying to me. She had played the role of the caring mother, the one who listened and offered advice, all while covering up her daughter's betrayal. It was like a slap in the face. I was done. I couldn't trust anyone in that family anymore. They had all been complicit in the lies, the manipulation, the deceit. And I couldn't be a part of it. I didn't want anything to do with M or her mother, and I certainly didn't want them in my life anymore. I called my sister right away. "You were right," I said, voice shaking. "They've been lying to me this whole time." We talked for hours, and by the end of it, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I had to put myself first. I couldn't allow myself to be manipulated by M or her mum any longer. I couldn't let them continue to control the narrative of my life. It was time to move on. And this time, I was going to do it for me. The hardest part was still ahead of me, though. I had to face my mom. I had to tell her that even though I understood why she had wanted me to forgive Mem, I couldn't. Not after everything that had happened. Not after all the lies. But I also knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let this betrayal define me. It hurt, but I was stronger than I had been before. And with my family by my side, I knew I could heal. It was just going to take time. And that was okay. I was no longer going to rush it. The days that followed were filled with a strange mix of anger and clarity. I had cut ties with M, and though it felt like a massive weight had been lifted off my shoulders, there was still this lingering emptiness inside me. It wasn't just the betrayal from M and L that stung. It was the realization that so many people I had trusted, so many people I had considered my close friends, had failed me in one way or another. Some knew about the affair and said nothing. Some were too scared to get involved. And then there was M's mum, the woman who had pretended to be a supportive figure in my life, while harboring the truth all along. It was hard to comprehend the depth of the deception. I remember when I called my sister after I found out about M's mum's complicity. She listened, but there was nothing left to say. The facts were all out in the open, and nothing could change the truth. She was as furious as I was, and we both agreed that M and her mother were no longer welcome in our lives. The whole situation was so toxic that I couldn't imagine any scenario in which it would be healthy to forgive them, not after everything that had happened. Even though I had made my peace with cutting them off, there were still moments when I was tempted to look back. I had spent so much of my life with M, and I kept wondering if I was doing the right thing by completely severing the bond. But deep down, I knew I had to stand by my decision. I had been hurt too deeply, and I couldn't risk letting those people back into my life, even if it meant losing my connection with my mum's best friend. As for L, I hadn't heard from him in a while. He sent me a message on my birthday, apologizing for what he had done. He said he was sorry for everything that had happened and that he regretted hurting me. He even went on to say that M had been a great support to him after our breakup and that she had helped him heal. His message was full of praise for calling her a great girlfriend, and telling me that it was because of me that he had learned how to love, which was why he could be such a good partner to M now. When I read that message, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The audacity of it all. L had cheated on me with my best friend, completely shattered my world. And now he was telling me that he didn't regret it because it helped him become a better partner to M. I didn't even bother responding. His words were meaningless to me at this point. I showed the message to my boyfriend at the time, who found it just as ridiculous as I did. He laughed, saying, "I guess his wishes came true." It wasn't about the message, though. What mattered was that I was no longer emotionally attached to the situation. I had moved on, and I was finally able to look at it with some level of detachment. L and M could do whatever they wanted with their lives, but I wasn't going to waste another minute thinking about them. I was done. A few weeks later, my mum sat me down again. This time, she wasn't pushing me to forgive M. Instead, she wanted to apologize for the pressure she had put on me. She said that she understood why I couldn't forgive M, and that she was sorry for not respecting my feelings sooner. She admitted that she had been afraid of losing her close friend, but she finally realized that I needed space to heal. It wasn't just about her friendship with M, it was about me, my healing process, and my right to make my own decisions. That conversation felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt like my mum truly understood. I didn't have to carry the burden of her expectations anymore. We both cried, and we talked about the pain we had both experienced. It wasn't easy, but it was real, and it felt like a step toward mending our own relationship. It took a while, but I eventually forgave her for pushing me to forgive M. She had acted out of love, even if I didn't agree with her approach. By the time all of this was behind me, I realized just how much strength I had gained. The pain wasn't gone, but I had learned to carry it in a way that didn't define me. I had been betrayed by two of the people I trusted most in the world. And while the scars would always be there, I now understood that they didn't have to control me. I could live my life, I could move forward, and I could do so on my own terms. A year after the breakup, I was in a new relationship. My boyfriend was kind, patient, and understanding. He wasn't perfect, but he made me feel safe He respected me, listened to me, and helped me rebuild my trust in people. In a way, he became the kind of partner I had always wanted, someone who cared for me deeply and showed it in every way possible. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was with someone who valued me for who I was, not for how I looked or what I could give them. Looking back, I realized how much I had grown. The process of healing wasn't quick, and it wasn't easy, but it made me a stronger person. I learned to trust my instincts, to set boundaries, and to never let anyone make me feel small or insignificant. I learned that I am worthy of love and respect, and that I don't need to settle for anything less. As for M and L, I don't regret cutting them out of my life. They're still together, and it seems like they've built a life for themselves. That's fine. They can have each other. I hope they are happy, but that's no longer my concern. What matters now is that I've found peace. I've found happiness in my own life, and I've learned to cherish the people who truly care about me. I also learned some hard truths about cheaters. They are incredibly insecure people, and nothing you do will ever be good enough for them. They will gaslight you, make you question your worth, and manipulate the situation to make themselves seem like the victims. But in the end, it's all a lie. They want to have their cake and eat it too, and they'll do whatever they can to make themselves look better while tearing you down. One thing I will never forget is the importance of self-respect. It's easy to lose yourself in the chaos of a betrayal, to think that you somehow weren't good enough or that you deserved the hurt. But the truth is, you deserve better. You deserve someone who loves you for who you are, someone who will never make you feel like you're not enough. Now, I can honestly say that I am happier than I've been in a long time. My boyfriend and I are planning a trip together after my finals, and I'm excited to create new memories, to keep moving forward, and to keep growing. I still think about everything that happened with M and L, but it no longer controls me. It's a part of my story, but it's not the whole story. And to anyone who's going through something similar, know this: it gets better. It might take time, and it might feel impossible at times, but you will find peace. You will find happiness again. Just keep going.